The special intensive revision at this point in Bihar is not only wrong, it is pretty close to being ridiculous. I am sorry to use this word for a constitutional authority.
So you do believe it was unnecessary?
Yes, it was unnecessary. I can actually say that about 75 to 80% of the people will not be able to satisfy these requirements, not in the next 19 days, not even in the next 60 days.
So you're saying something like 75 to 80% could end up getting disenfranchised?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.
Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. The Election Commission's decision to order a special intensive revision of the electoral roll in Bihar has raised serious concerns and disturbing questions. They are the focus of today's interview. Will possibly crores be disenfranchised as a result? Will the poor and the marginalized be the worst to suffer? And was it necessary to carry out this exercise at this point? My guest is a former professor and dean of the Indian Institute of Management at Ahmedabad and a founding member of the Association for Democratic Reforms, Jagdeep Chhokar. Professor Chhokar, whilst I know the Representation of People Act authorizes the Election Commission to hold a special revision of the electoral roll in any manner it thinks fit and at any time, nonetheless, is it proper that a special intensive revision should be held in Bihar just 4 months before elections are due? In 2003, when the last special intensive revision was held, it was done 2 years before the assembly elections, not just 4 months.
Well, your opening sentence that the conduct of the Representation of People Act authorizes the Election Commission of India to conduct any special or intensive revision at any point in time. That is the key. It only gives the authority to the Election Commission of India to do it at any point in time. It does not say do it any which way you want. There is a legal lacuna here at the outset that it only says you can do it. It does not say you can change the criteria. So this is a legal problem. Number two, what you asked, doing it at this point in time in Bihar when the elections are due in 3 or 4 months, when the monsoons are in full swing, a large proportion of the landmass of Bihar will be underwater, and a lot of people are away for migration, for labor work in villages of Punjab and Haryana doing agricultural work, and of course in big cities like Mumbai, Hyderabad for construction work, and to ask for documents which are not likely to be available with 80% of Bihar's population, and do that in a period of first phase is 1 month. Now there are only, I think, 19 days left where voters have to produce the documents, and then there is 1 month of review and verification, etc. This is absolutely impractical. It is not likely to happen, and if it happens, it is likely to disenfranchise a huge proportion of voters in Bihar.
You've raised several critical issues in that answer. Let me go through each of them one by one. And let me begin by saying that the special intensive revision has to be completed in just 1 month, from June the 25th till July the 25th. Given that it affects nearly 8 crore voters in Bihar, can it really be done in 30 days?
No, it cannot be. The BLO booth level officer is required to visit every house at least twice and some houses 3 times. Now, can you imagine in 30 days or in 19 days that are left from now, the people will be able to visit every single household? Secondly, a lot of migrants that I mentioned earlier will not be in their households. They will be out in other cities and other states. What will the BLO do? He or she can do nothing. The Election Commission, in a fit of generosity, I think, so they imagine, they have said that if a voter is not found at home, he or she can download the enumeration form from the Election Commission's website, fill it up, and upload it on the Election Commission's website. I shudder to think how would an agricultural laborer in Punjab or a construction worker in Mumbai be able to download and upload these forms? Where and how? This is a sheer impossibility.
Now, in an article that you've written for The Wire a couple of days ago, you point out that the Election Commission started the process on the 24th of June. Will its own staff, including electoral registration officers and booth level officers, be ready and trained so quickly?
No, I didn't say they started the process on 24th of June. I said they issued instructions on 24th of June, and the schedule said the process will start the very next day on the 25th of June. And the first item was BLOs and electoral registration officers will print out 8 crore enumeration forms, and 80,000 BLOs will be trained in 3 days. And then 2 days later, there was a news item in the Indian Express which said that the Election Commission has said that they have already trained 80,000 booth level officers. Now, training, you need training material, you need training equipment, you need to collect people from various places to different locations and then train them. If this can be done in 80,000 for 80,000 BLOs in 3 days, I think we have set a world record.
Okay, I think that is a crystal clear answer. Let's then, against that background, come to the details. People born before July 1987 are required to provide proof of birth and birthplace. For a start, a lot of people don't have birth certificates. For instance, many were born at home. Won't it be almost impossible for them to provide birth certificates?
It will be, not almost, it will be impossible. And I believe some health and family welfare survey of the government of India estimated that something like 2.8% of the births got registered. So, in any case, when 98% births are not registered, where will they get the certificates from?
Let me fill in that detail for you. The Indian Express, citing Registrar General of India data, says that as recently as the year 2000, only 3.7% of estimated births in Bihar were registered. And even by the year 2007, and remember, people born in 2007 will be becoming 18 this year and therefore eligible to be on the roll. But even by 2007, the figure of people who were registered at birth was only 25%. Doesn't this mean that the preponderant majority, pretty close to that 98% figure you cited, actually is just above 75-76%, do not have birth certificates?
Well, that is the irony. And the other problem is that the Election Commission has given a set of 11 documents, of which birth certificate is one. But in the conditions that they have laid down, they say provide any document for sale from the list given below establishing date of birth and / or place of birth. Now, first of all, the birth certificate will give the place of birth, but the matriculation certificate never has the place of birth. And when they write and or, the question arises whether you need to provide one of them or both of them. Now, if the ERO interprets this and slash or as and, then you have to provide both. If the applicant interprets as or, he or she will provide only one, and we will have a problem on the ground when the registration has to happen. This use of and slash or for such a critical document or such a critical requirement, to me, shows lack of application while preparing these documents, these orders. And
let me, for the sake of the audience, point out the sort of documents that can be submitted as part of those 11 documents that the EC is prepared to accept. They include PSU identity cards, passports, matriculation certificates, forest rights certificates, and caste certificates. But the most common card that people have, the Aadhaar card and the ration card, are excluded. So my first question is, how many people who don't have birth certificates are likely to have certificates like a PSU identity card or a passport or a matriculation certificate? And then secondly, even if they do have these, will these certificates actually identify place of birth? You've already said it's very unlikely that it will.
well, I used to work in a PSU undertaking many, many years ago, and the card that they had given me did not have the place of birth. Secondly, there is a report in the Indian Express, I think yesterday or the day before, the only detailed ground report by Damini Nath and Santosh Singh on the 3rd or 4th. It is dated the 3rd, but published on the 4th, yesterday. It gives maybe 25 examples where people have said to these people that we have the Aadhaar card, the voter ID card, and the labor card. These are the three most common cards the population of Bihar has, and none of them figures in here. Interestingly, the Election Commission's own EPIC electric photo identity card is not in the list.
So what you're pointing out, Professor Chhokar, is that a very large number of people, possibly a majority of the people who don't have birth certificates, also won't have any of the other 11 documents that are permissible. In which case, let me put this to you. What are the chances that poor people from marginalized groups, Dalits, Muslims, extremely backward castes, or tribals, are the ones we're talking about? They won't have these documents, and therefore they are the most likely to be disenfranchised.
Absolutely. I can actually say that about 75 to 80% of the people will not be able to satisfy these requirements, not in the next 19 days, not even in the next 60 days.
So you're saying something like 75 to 80% could end up getting disenfranchised?
Yes. And last time, I think you said that in 2003, when this was done, it apparently took 2 years. Now, how can you do this in 15 days or 1 month, etc.? So ironically, the purpose to weed out superfluous voters, etc., and to update the voter roll is a very laudable purpose. And the Constitution, Article 326, does give the Election Commission the right to do so. And it says that only a citizen has the right to vote. All that is perfect. But the question is the way the Election Commission is doing it. I believe that there is a fundamental misunderstanding in the mind of the Election Commission about what its role is. Election Commission is actually a service organization which is to provide the service of enabling citizens of India to exercise their right to vote. And therefore, it should facilitate people's possibilities of voting. Election Commission seems to think it is a super regulatory body It is the boss of how elections are to be conducted. Nobody else knows how elections are to be conducted. It is a super authority who will tell everybody what to do. It knows it all. Nobody else knows anything. There is a normal system that it would have consulted political parties, it would have consulted civil society, and then come up with these. Then these problem would have been pointed out ahead of time. But
Absolutely.
that would take it beyond the Bihar election.
Absolutely. What you're saying is perfectly justified. But let me come back to the details because there are two stages further that we need to consider. So far, we've been talking about people born before July 87. They have to provide birth certificates or any one of the other 11 documents that are permissible, and or, as you point out, they also have to show the place of birth, and that and or is vague, it can be misinterpreted, it can lead to confusion, it means that the document is badly drafted. Now let's come to the second and third stages. People born after July 87 and up to December 2004 have to provide proof of birth and birthplace, not just of themselves, but also of one parent. Whilst those born after December 2004 have to provide details of both parents. I ask you, how many people are likely to have these details of their parents? If I take myself as an example, I can't provide my parents' birth certificates. Both of them are dead. And I can't therefore provide any alternate proof of their birth. And if I can't, what are the chances that people in Bihar, the poor, the Dalits, the Muslims, the extremely backward caste, will be able to provide proof of their parents' births, particularly if those parents are dead?
Well, if you can't provide, you are no longer on the electoral roll. And the percentage of people who might be able to provide it in Bihar, I don't think is more than 10%. When I said you will no longer be on the electoral roll, here is another serious legal flaw in this circular. There is a system for deletion of the names of a registered voter. It is available in the what is that called? Rules for electors registration, and it is available in the conduct of election rules, and it's available in the Representation of People Act. The Election Commission is required to identify people whose names it believes should be deleted. It is then legally required to give them a notice in writing and then give them an opportunity to be heard in person to explain why their name should not be deleted. This is the law of the land. In this case, by a simple circular, the Election Commission has deleted the names of every single person who was registered after 1/1/2003. This is a serious and gross violation of the existing law of the land. I don't know why this did not cross the mind of the people who did this.
You're making a very important point. You're saying the law of the land, and it still stands today as the law of the land, lays down a procedure whereby people can be deleted from the electoral roll. They have to be given a 1 month notice. They have to be heard. They have to be asked. That whole process is essential. Here, instead, the Election Commission, by a simple circular, has decided that people born after a particular date, I think you said 2003, are simply deleted unless they can prove that they are Indian citizens and they can give the details of themselves and their parents.
No. First of all, the circular says that for people whose names figure in the electoral roll of 1 month before 1/1/2003, there is a presumption of citizenship. The obvious flip side of this is those whose names are not in the electoral roll of 1/2003 are not presumed to be citizens. They do not exist on the rolls of this country, according to the Election Commission. This is a gross mistake, which the Election Commission seems to be completely unaware of, and I have written about it, I have been speaking about it, but there's no acknowledgement, no receipt.
Is this an issue on which the Election Commission can be taken to court?
Absolutely, and I hope somebody does.
Would you consider doing it?
Maybe.
Okay. Now, all of this, the procedure for those born before 87, the procedure for those born between 87 and 2004, and for those born after December 2004, all of this has to be compiled within a month, or as you said, their names will be deleted from the electoral roll. But during the next 30 days, the monsoon will be at its height in Bihar. As you said in the first answer, much of Bihar will be flooded. And it also is the Kharif sowing season, which is a critical time for agricultural people and for rural labor. Won't all of this make it additionally difficult for people to comply? Even if they want to, they simply won't have the time.
Absolutely. As I said, it is absolutely impractical. It is not going to happen, or it will create chaos.
Let me put a second problem to you. And again, it's one that you referred to in that first answer. It's estimated that 20% of the population of Bihar are migrant labor. And I'll just underline 20% is a very sizable number. It's pretty close to, what should I say, 2 crore. These migrant labor won't be there when this special intensive revision is done. Well, what happens to them? Won't they simply get deleted from the electoral roll through no fault of theirs? And clearly, they can't afford to make a special trip back to Bihar just to be included because they don't have the money to do so.
Not that they will be removed. They have been removed from the electoral roll. As of today, when we are speaking, all the migrant labor who are outside Bihar are no longer on the electoral roll. They have been disenfranchised. They have to register themselves afresh by providing fresh documents. They don't exist as voters or citizens, according to the Election Commission.
This is a gross injustice to them, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the worst part is, even if they wish to get themselves included again, they may not have the documents to verify their status.
The chances are, overwhelming chances are that they will not.
Now, there's one more concern, Professor Chhokar, and it was one made by a leader of the LJP party to the Indian Express. The Indian Express published it on the 3rd of July. That leader says failure to be included in the electoral roll will not affect any right to receive government benefits. So, isn't there a danger that many voters may not be motivated to do the hard work or to spend the money to get the documents that are needed? They may opt to be disenfranchised because it's simpler and easier, particularly when the monsoons are happening and it's the Kharif sowing season.
It is wrong of him to say that, and that statement is not even correct. How does that person know? I don't know who that person is. I just wonder, how does he know what the government of India will do 2 days down the line or 20 days down the line? If you are not a citizen, how are you entitled to any benefit? The Election Commission's contention is there is no presumption of citizenship for these people. Is a citizen entitled to any direct benefit from the government of India?
So you're saying a very important thing. If any voter in Bihar opts for what the LJP leader thought he or she might do, then that person is putting himself or herself in a very invidious position, because they will then be deemed to be non-citizens of India and aliens and liable for deportation.
According to the Election Commission of India, they are deemed to be non-citizens as we speak. Not will be. They are non-citizens as we speak, according to the Election Commission of India.
That's the terrible corollary to the discussion we're having. Any adult over the age of 18 in Bihar who doesn't get included in the electoral roll will be deemed to be a non-citizen of India. Isn't that right?
Yes. Yes. There will be no presumption of citizenship. These are the wordings used in the circular.
But this also means that people who fail to get included in the electoral roll because they don't have the documents, they can't find them, whether it's birth certificates or whether it's their parents' proof of birth, will be deemed to be non-citizens, but actually they are citizens. They were born here, brought up here. They have every claim to be an Indian as you and I do, but because they don't have the documents to satisfy the EI, they'll be deemed to be non-citizens and therefore liable to deportation.
And they have been citizens till the 23rd of June 2025.
So this is what the Election Commission has done. By the stroke of a pen, they've converted several people who are citizens into potential non-citizens.
Yes.
That is the true injustice of it, isn't it?
Well, and that is the true import of this decision of the Election Commission.
Now sorry, carry on.
Let me give you an interesting example of the intention and the actions of the Election Commission. They issued several documents on June the 24th. They issued a press note. They issued instruction to the Chief Electoral Officer of Bihar and some other documents. In the press note of June 24, 2025, in the fourth paragraph, let me read this out to you, and I quote, in accordance with Section 23 of the Representation of People Act 1950, the eligibility conditions to enroll as an elector were already being verified by the ERO to his satisfaction. Next two sentences are critical. Quote again, now, to ensure complete transparency, it would be necessary that the documents on the basis of which such satisfaction of ERO is arrived at are also uploaded in the ECI net as the current technology enables us so. Next sentence. However, these documents shall be accessible to authorized election officials only, keeping in view the privacy issues. Now, the documents will be uploaded on the net for transparency, but they will be accessible only to authorized election officials, not to anybody else. So, where is the transparency?
That's a very good point you make. Let me, as we come to the end of this interview, put another question to you. The Congress Party believes that somewhere between 2 and 2.5 crore people could be disenfranchised by this exercise. On the other hand, the Election Commission has insisted that no genuine voter will be left out. Who do you believe?
I don't believe either of them.
How many people do you think are liable to be disenfranchised?
I certainly disbelieve the Election Commission. I do not necessarily accept the figure of the Congress Party because I have not worked out any figures. So their figure may be right or wrong, I don't know.
Can I interrupt? In an earlier answer in this interview, you said 75 to 80% will be disenfranchised. That's very close to 2 crore.
That is my estimate. And when I estimate a percentage, I am not going by actual numbers. Look, I can give you an estimate based on what I read, what I understand, what I know. But exact numbers I don't know.
Okay.
But
do you stand by that estimate?
Of course, 75 to 80% I stand by.
Okay. Finally, an unnamed former chief election commissioner has told the Economic Times that after the digitalization of the electoral rolls and what he calls de-winning, the present electoral rolls, he says, are near 99% pure. He adds, if there are any changes needed, they can be done non-intrusively. In other words, what he's saying is that a special intensive revision isn't necessary. Do you agree with that view?
Two responses to your question. One, I do not give much credence to unnamed sources. If this former chief election commissioner was not willing to give his name, I am sorry, I do not take it very seriously. Number two, I don't know whether the electoral roll is 99% correct, but I can tell you that a correction could have been done without so much of hullabaloo being done and without doing things which are fundamentally wrong to the citizens of this country. the special intensive revision at this point in Bihar is not only wrong, it is pretty close to being ridiculous. I am sorry to use this word for a constitutional authority.
So you do believe it was unnecessary?
Yes, it was unnecessary.
Okay, that's very clear. Not only is the special intensive revision at this point of time in Bihar wrong, it's pretty close to ridiculous and it's unnecessary.
I also want to add that it is not because an unnamed chief election commissioner says so.
Absolutely, no, that is your view.
Yes.
Professor Chhokar, thank you very much for explaining the background and the details, the inconsistencies, and more importantly, the injustice inherent in the special intensive revision and the way it's being carried out in particular. I thank you for the time you've given me. Take care, stay safe.
Thank you. You too.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.